Hi guys, welcome to the latest podcast of YarninBlak. Today I've got a great special friend on today, Christine. I'll introduce you to Christine in a second, but I would like to acknowledge exactly where I am right now. I'm here on the beautiful lands of the Wurundjeri people in Melbourne, Balwyn Kew, and I want to pay respect to the elders past, present, but also to the young people that are actually coming through because they're going to be our warriors and our leaders of the future. But I've got a really great a special guest on today. Christine, how are you?
Yeah, good morning. Good morning, AJ. And thanks for inviting me to be on your podcast.
Look, it's wonderful. But I'll get you, people don't know who you are. So who are you? Where you're from?
So I am a Arrernte, Eastern Arrernte-Kaytetye woman from Central Australia. So I was born in Mparntwe, Alice Springs, but I grew up in Garramilla, which is Darwin, and I permanently live in Bulu, which most people know as Perth. So yeah, settled
Yep.
here.
Wow. So what do you do?
Okay, so for the last going on 11 years now, I've run my own consultancy. And it kind of came about because I was in the resource sector over here in WA. And we had in 2015, the mining boom actually went bust. So,
Mm.
interesting or not interesting, we all got busted out the door, AJ, as in the Aboriginal managers. So, WA was actually in recession. I didn't even have one job to apply for. So I thought I'd better set up my own consultancy because I didn't want to put I was unemployed. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you went to, where did you go to school? In
Darwin.
NT? Darwin.
Yep.
So did
Yep.
you finish high school? Did you actually finish year 12?
Yes, I did. I did year 12 at a private school in Darwin, St. John's College. And then I spent the next 4 years in Adelaide training to be a teacher.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, so my background is teaching. And when I qualified, I went straight back to Darwin and was in the classroom for about 7 years, taught in Darwin and remote communities. And the last job I had with the NT Department of Education was actually managing their Aboriginal education unit.
Oh, wow. Wow. I've got a question to ask you. When you were at school, how much Aboriginal issues did you learn at school at the time?
Zero, absolutely zero. It wasn't in the curriculum. And if it was, if it ever did rear its head, it was always that image of one of our mobs standing on one leg with the
Yeah.
spear. So it was interesting, given our school had a very high population of Aboriginal kids, nothing, zero.
Was there any Aboriginal teachers at your school?
That's a really good point. Back then, because that was the 80s, no. And it was really interesting because I think as a teacher, we sometimes forget how much we influence the young people in our classroom. And particularly, I've had many of my former Aboriginal students say to me how amazing it was to walk into the classroom and see they had an Aboriginal teacher. For the very first time, it just changed everything. And sometimes we're not always thinking of that, but they certainly do. And, we're role models for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you become a primary teacher, high school teacher, or both?
Oh, it's really interesting. Hey, I am a qualified early childhood
Good
teacher,
teacher. Ah,
but with that degree, I have taught preschool, primary, secondary. I've taught, lectured at Murdoch University over here
yeah.
in the teacher ed program. And the reason I always wanted to do that, AJ, was I wanted to get to the teachers before they got to our students and arm them with all this information that they wouldn't know before they got out there. And our kids do learn differently. Our system is set up for middle class white kids, and our kids just don't fit in that box.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I agree with you. It's sometimes it's like putting what do they say, that a round thing into a square hole, or
Yes.
it just
Yeah.
doesn't just match.
It's just got no relevance. Some of the stuff we teach in the curriculum has absolutely no relevance to our kids. They're never going to need it, use it, whatever. And some schools have started to switch it up. if they've got the power and opportunity to do that. And it makes a massive difference to the retention of our students. But I'm finding in 2025, 2026, our young people are struggling in the schooling
Agreed.
sector, and they're having to be homeschooled because going to a normal school is just too challenging, but we're really not meeting that need enough.
Yeah, yeah. Now, in your immediate family, were you one of the first to actually get to year 12?
Um, it was interesting with my parents, and people often say to me, how come I'm so successful? And I say it goes back to my parents. Both of my parents are Aboriginal, and they knew the power and the importance of education. So they encouraged all of us. They put us through the private school, even when they probably couldn't afford it. They so before me, I had older sisters that did year 12. Um, I come from one of the largest Aboriginal families in the Northern Territory, yet I was the first to go to university, and that
Oh,
was 1981. So since then, a lot of the young ones have all gone through. We've got an amazing group of the next generation who are just absolutely kicking goals. Um, but in answer to your question, yeah, not a lot, but we did it. And I think when I did it, there were only two of us as Aboriginal students.
yeah. So your first move from Northern Territory to Adelaide, what was that like?
Scary as hell. It was the hardest thing that I ever had to do. I think getting on a plane at the age of 17, when you've lived at home, and Darwin being a small city at the time, landing in Adelaide and not even knowing what winter was, and then a whole big city, it was scary for me. It was scary for my family, trusting that I would be okay. Um, it really opened my eyes to so many things, though. And I think the path that I've gone on all of my life, with being a strong supporter of everything Aboriginal, began in Adelaide. And
Yeah,
it began with those marches that we did down King William Street.
yeah,
And that was the setting for what became for the rest of my life, really. Yeah.
yeah. So how old were you when you moved to Perth?
I've been here 23
Is
years.
okay. We're
Yeah,
gonna have to disclose your age. 23 years is fine. Yeah.
yeah, I love living here. I love living on Whadjuk Country.
Yeah.
But the Northern Territory will always be home. And I can live here because I go home regularly.
Yeah.
And if I wasn't going back to Alice Springs or Darwin, then I couldn't probably stay here.
Yeah.
And being home in Darwin the last week, some of my mob thought I was still in Alice Springs. They hadn't realised I'd actually left 23 years ago. But yeah, but no, I'm happy living here, particularly as my immediate family all live here now.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, how often do you get home? And if you or my other question part of that is how often do you get home? But how often does your body tell you you need to go home?
Yeah, that's a really good point, hey. And sometimes people, because they're always so used to me saying Darwin, Darwin's my hometown, which it is. Alice Springs is my country. And when I point out to people, I love living here in Perth. I love going home to Darwin, which I did last week, but there's nowhere more powerful than walking barefoot on your country. And in my case, Arrernte country. So I'm planning to go back there this year just to, it's almost like you need to go home and recharge your batteries. You're absolutely right, and that's what I say. If I didn't go home regularly, I would just feel no good because I need to be with my own mob. I need to be in my own country with my community. It's a powerful thing. And I felt that last week because that was a huge funeral I went to. And having not seen particularly a lot of my elders for a while,
Yeah.
it's really important. It's bloody tough living away from home.
Yeah. And I think Wadjulas and Migaloo, the term that I use, like they often can't understand the connection that we do actually have to be at home. And they home in a Western concept can be my house that I live in right now, or
Mm,
for some Aboriginal people, home can be 100 or 200 kilometers away, but I can easily drive there in a couple of hours. But for some mob, getting home isn't as easy if I'm on the other side of the country and I don't have the resources and the finances to get home. And so they're
mm,
not able to go to the sorry business, the
mm,
funerals, and how that actually has an impact on their health and mental health and their social emotional well-being, not being able to get
mm.
home when they need to.
Yeah, absolutely. The beauty about being self-employed is before we lost my mother 2 years ago, I was able to go home to Darwin, I think probably 6 times that year because you can work from anywhere as long as you've got
Yeah,
your laptop. And it gives you that opportunity to do that. I don't go home as much now with both of my parents passed on. Um, but I know that a lot of our family wanted to be at that big family funeral last week and they couldn't. And that's where technology helps because of the live streaming. So
yeah,
I organised that for my uncle's funeral. And it makes such a difference because people want to be, as we know, pay our respects, but they physically can't be there and financially. I often wish Australia wasn't as big at times simply because families living all around Australia and we just don't get to see each other as much due
yeah.
to costs. Yeah.
A question I've got for you is that cultural safety is a big term that gets thrown around. What does cultural safety mean to you, and what makes you feel culturally safe when you rock up to a service?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's really important because it'll be the make or break as to whether you stay with that organization. As a consultant, I've got a lot of diverse clients. I look to see what they're employing me to do first up. And sometimes I've said no because it's not fits with my
Yeah.
values and they've got a different agenda to what mine is. Um, we're fantastic at reading body language. We're looking for signs when we walk into a building, who's meeting and greeting us. What are some of we know when if there's beautiful Aboriginal art around. I love to see our flags
Mm.
on their desks or outside their building. That's usually a good welcoming sign. It's just how they how they're communicating with us
Yeah,
makes a difference. Are they genuine? Do they have
yeah,
genuine intent? Or are they gammon and it's just tick a box? More than ever, as Aboriginal people, we're under enormous pressure in everything that we do. And so if you're going to spend 8 hours a day in a workplace, you want it to tick the boxes. You want them to be welcoming. But what our mob find the most frustrating is when we're not listened to. You
mm,
know, our mob are as smart as anything. They're putting forward ideas and things.
yeah,
Bosses just don't want to hear. Modular bosses don't want to hear
yeah.
because it's not their ideas and it doesn't fit the box. Yeah.
No. Now, and you've got a really good point there, and it's that fine line though. Of an organization can have all that decorations and the flags and the artwork, but
Mm-hmm.
it still can be culturally unsafe if they don't actually understand what those symbols mean or what the flag actually means, or
Yeah.
if you get that really bad attitude when you first arrive, because for black fellas, we turn up to especially health services when something's infected, sore, pussy, enlarged,
Mm.
and we're not well. It's why we've turned up. To actually be welcomed in really does actually help us, because we don't wake up in the morning and go, oh, I think we better go to the doctor, we better go to the hospital, and
Mm.
the same thing is that I don't wake up and I think I need a social worker in my life today. So
Yeah.
if we actually are seeking that out, it's because we are unwell, if that makes sense to start off with.
Mm. Absolutely. I worked 20 years in education and the crucial person often when our mob are walking into a school is who's in the admin office
Yeah.
as to how they're greeting our families. Are they making them feel like they're welcome? You know, it could be just a simple greeting, but it goes a long way. And how they're talking to our mob. You know, sometimes they tend to just dumb it down because I think we don't understand.
Yeah.
So that's just one example. But what I've started to do, because we've had sometimes such shit service over the years, if I'm accessing medical or whatever thing and that person has been really good, and I'll acknowledge it and say, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having that good bedside manner. Thank you. You made me feel really comfortable today. So, and it does make a difference for me and them. And then they'll remember it maybe next time.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, another big word that gets thrown around is reconciliation. Yeah. What does reconciliation mean to you?
Oh, well, I think after the referendum result in 2023, we were like, what? What? My reaction to that was, hang on a sec. We've had the reconciliation movement in this country for a very long time. We have over 3,000 companies with RAPs.
Yeah.
What the heck went wrong there? And some of our mob, and I was a little bit on the fence, didn't want to even do anything about reconciliation because, as we always know, we go, well, what are we reconciling? You
Yeah.
know, well, what did we do? Why are we always doing the heavy lifting? Um, I work with a lot of companies that have got reconciliation action plans and helping them to implement it because I want them to do better. I want
Yeah.
them to do what they said they were going to do. And it's almost like keeping them honest. Um, we, as you know, are only 3% of the population. So, what we need to do in this country, we can't do alone. We need to have those allies. We need to have those Wodulars walking with us.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's reminding them that, you know, it's a good thing to not, you know, that they need to do that, some of
Yeah.
them. And so, when you ask me that question, I think, well, we can't just not have it. It's an important part of this country moving forward. So many times we go, AJ, we go, seriously? You know, we're coming up to the 26th of January, and it's actually not rocket science to change that date
No.
because it's only been national since 1994. It can be done, you
Yeah.
know. So again, it's comes back to that white privilege
Yeah.
that constantly rules our lives.
And do you think that, you know, that for a lot of non-Indigenous people, they really don't actually understand Aboriginal history and how recent a lot of this stuff actually is? That they
Yeah.
do think it's happened 200 or 300 years ago, or
Mm,
colonization's the thing that everyone blames. But the majority of Aboriginal elders in our community that are still alive today, they were around for the 1967 referendum, which
mm,
allowed them to be counted in the census for the first time.
yeah.
And I don't think, and I think that's also lacking in our education system, is that I see a lot of teachers that do teach Aboriginal issues, but they're still teaching it as history, not
Mm,
not how it impacts on people today. So if I'm teaching a
yeah.
year 10 student about, the 1967 referendum, I really
Mm,
need to explain, and those people are the elders in our community right now.
yeah.
This is
Yeah.
how it's impacted on them. Because
Mm,
otherwise, if that kid hears something about 1967 and they're born in what, 2004, they're going to go, fuck, that was years ago, nothing to do with me,
yes.
because they
Yeah.
can't actually relate it to contemporary Aboriginal people and,
Yeah.
and mob right now.
Absolutely. So I developed a program called Ways of Working with Aboriginal People, and the focus is on the workplace. But as you know, you can't just jump to the workplace without looking at our history in this country. And I go around the room when they're doing introductions, and it's predominantly Wodulars.
Yeah,
And I say, have you done cultural awareness training before? What's your understanding? Tell me things that you already know about my people. And so many haven't done it. You know, I'm a descendant of a stolen generation survivor. And when I talk about that, they're hearing it for the first time. And I'm like, how can you live in this country? You're born in Australia and you know nothing about our history, who we are. So, with that training, I also talk about contemporary issues. This is us in 2026. This is what we face. We're the most targeted group for racism in Australia. Let that sit with you for a moment. And that when you and I were yarning earlier, and I
Yeah.
say to them, it's bloody hard to be Aboriginal in Australia. We're proud of our culture and everything about it, but geez, it's hard to survive here. Yeah.
Yeah. So those people wanting to tick the box at the next census that we've seen, because we apparently get all this stuff for free. Yeah.
Oh, geez. I mean, that one, and we call Johnny come latelys, and some of them it's not their fault. We know with the policies that impacted on
Yeah.
them, and if they're just finding out their Aboriginality, I say, okay, that's great. Go on that journey. We have
Yeah.
link up services. Find out about who your mob is.
Yeah.
Don't just go, yeah, we're Aboriginal, that's it. Find out about who your family is if you can. There's so much information out there now. Some will never find that info,
No.
but we hope they do. But it's also about immersing yourself in our community. I can't well, we know we've got some of our mob, they are Aboriginal Monday to Friday, and they don't do anything out of hours or on weekends. And I say, over here, the Noongar community is so good in welcoming everybody to
Yeah.
all of their events. They want people to participate, enjoy, learn, all of that. But people don't take up that invite. I
No.
don't know what they're thinking sometimes, but, come
Yeah.
along and learn about your own mob.
Yeah. I think you've raised a couple of good points there. We can't blame people for not knowing about their Aboriginality at times.
Mm.
The only issue I have sometimes is that when I've known people that have never identified their Aboriginality, and then all of a sudden they do, and the next minute
Mm.
they're selling artwork
Yes.
and telling stories that I don't know whether it's their story or not, because they've been to enough trainings to actually hear other people's stories,
Yeah,
and they take that on board. And I'm going, it's not just as easy as that.
I know. It's a lived experience, AJ. You can't make this stuff up. You've got to be immersed in your culture. Not everybody has that privilege.
Yeah.
You and I know where we're from, we know who our mob is, and we've grown up with our mob, but not all of them have. But they've got to tread carefully and not
Yeah.
just jump from here to here. Like I've just found out, next minute I'm over here. Right now, within our mob, it's causing a lot of contention.
Yeah.
Um, and if I was on the other side, I would go softly, softly till I'm finding more about, but not using it to tick the box. And you and I are consultants, so sometimes they're taking the work that we have built up over many years, just like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
I've got a question for you. If I had a gazillion dollars and a magic wand, and I said to you, you can fix anything that you like in Aboriginal affairs, where would you start? What would you use my wand for?
Okay, opportunities for employment. I see an area, a lot of gaps. And while there's never been more opportunities for our mob, I link in with a lot of Aboriginal women who are sole traders. Now, we don't get the same opportunities. We're seen as the low hanging fruit when it comes to the IBAs giving out funding. And then they make it so damn hard for us to get anything anyway. We don't bother. Um, I would put money into those businesses because they're struggling. They're doing long hours and not getting the rewards that they should. That's one that I would spend money on. But it's our young people who need, and I'd almost flip the employment stuff. So don't expect them to begin being there 8 hours a day. Start off
Yep.
with 4 hours a day and 3 days a week, and then they're
Yep.
going to turn up because you're building their confidence, their resilience, their work ethic. And they can't just be expected to jump straight in when they haven't worked. Housing affordability for our young people. There's
Mm.
no way my grandchildren are going to be able to afford a house.
Yeah.
They can't even afford rentals here in Perth. So we're facing, and we always have a housing crisis. Health, we touched on, and our people are just dying worse than ever.
Yeah.
And so it's about educating our mob, but also, our remote communities. You and I can probably see a doctor tomorrow. They
Yeah.
can't. They
Yeah.
don't have the luxury of a dentist or a doctor or a podiatrist or anyone going out to these most remote communities. The week I just spent back in Darwin, I saw a lot of mob coming in from their remote communities. They're stuck in Darwin because they can't get back out
Yeah.
because of wet season, but there's nowhere for them to stay. They've just got to live on the street.
Mm. And I don't think people realize how remote actually is. Like I, I've done a lot of traveling, you know, through Northern Territory doing work, and people think if you get to Alice Springs, it's remote, and that's not remote.
No.
Go to some of the
Mm.
real small communities where there's still no running water
Yeah.
and no electricity
Yeah.
and gas bottles that are being used to help cook the food
Mm.
and people having to drive 100 or 200 kilometers to the shop
Yeah.
and being on a benefit card that you can only spend money in that one shop and the prices
I know. Horrendous.
are horrendous.
Mm.
It's like we're well, you know, I think Aboriginal health has been declared third world
Mm.
because
Yeah.
there's third world countries that I remember, you know, not eating for a couple of days to raise money for some countries in South Africa
Mm.
for third world, where in 2026 our Aboriginal communities are still in third world conditions.
Yeah. And it's explaining, I talk about that when I deliver the training, things that we take for granted. My family, a lot of my family are living in those third world conditions in the Northern Territory, and some of it's not their fault.
No.
And we know when, say, NT government, it might have been given a big lump sum from the Commonwealth to build houses and that. Years ago, that money was funneled somewhere else. It didn't go to the communities where it needed to go. It went to a lot of admin on costs and all of that. And, you sort of go, and people blame us. They go, but you're getting millions of dollars. What are you doing with it? And say, we actually have no control over that. Money's being funneled elsewhere, and it didn't build those
Yeah.
houses at all. I wouldn't mind, you just reminded me touching on stolen wages, because in the Northern Territory and WA, we've just gone through that process. And honestly, AJ, I just, in total anger and disbelief, when I think of, hang on, oh, hang on. That, oops. All right, I'll come back. Oh, why did it drop out? All right, just bear with me. Can you
Yeah.
hear me?
I can hear
All
you.
right. Yeah, it just dropped out for some reason. All right, am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Okay, all right. Um, we got the determination before Christmas for my father, and I thought he worked on the land. He ran a station at the age of 9. And they were giving us this paltry figure. And you go, where on earth did you pluck that from?
Yeah.
It's a generic amount. But you go, seriously, at least pay our people their due.
Yeah.
Yeah, shocking. Yep.
Yeah. And I think it's so hard when the government, like how much do you put on on stuff? Like I grew up in foster care, and I was told that my mum died and my mum was told that I had died.
Mm,
And people say to me, you know, if you got compensation, how much would you want? I don't know if I can actually put a figure on it, if that makes
mm,
sense. Like,
you can't. You can't.
what is the exact figure that you get?
Mm,
Sometimes just having it recognized, because I think one thing that really helped me with the apology that Kevin Rudd did is it was for the
mm.
first time in my life that someone acknowledged that the stuff I went through was real.
That is so true. And when I used to do talks in schools about the stolen generation, and my mother used to say, people need to know this is what happened to us in this country. They need to know. So keep on doing that. WA has only just issued for their WA Stolen Generation,
Yeah.
the redress program, and that will become available in March this year. But so many elders died waiting,
Mm.
waiting, and it should have come years ago. Sadly, this is the richest state in Australia, but they dragged their feet on that. Um, you couldn't put a value dollar on it, and at least that was a little bit more than stolen wages. That's been the
Yeah.
really bad one when you see what the lawyers got paid to what the people that actually did the job got. It's
Yeah.
nowhere near the
Yeah.
same. Yeah.
And you brought up before, and I really agree with you about, how modulars see the money. They'll hear that there might be, eh, $4 or $5 million put into a project, but how much of that money actually gets to the community
Mm.
once an organization's taken out 20% admin fee, once
Yes.
you've paid staff,
Mm.
once you've bought some cars for people to get out to the communities,
Yeah. Yeah.
a new laptop, a computer, that $5 million that you actually had is down to like a million
Mm.
dollars, and you're
Yeah.
expected to deliver $5 million worth of work on an $1 million.
Mm.
Uh,
Happens all the time, AJ.
yeah,
That stolen wages, Shine Lawyers took out approximately $42 million. And then the insurers took out another couple of million. And all we got was a lousy, it wasn't even worth the paper it's written on.
yeah,
It's really insulting. But we deal with that all the time. And it's like closing the gap. They've got to flick the switch and give the power to the communities. Nobody knows our mob like we do. And instead of doing things this way from Canberra, talk to the people and say, what is it that you need? What are your priorities?
yeah,
And that will make a difference because they're living it every single day. Oh,
yeah,
it's so frustrating, that one.
yeah.
Yeah.
I always share a joke with, and it is a joke, but it isn't a joke because it's a real thing that happened. I was doing some work with a remote community in Northern Territory, and the government underclosed the gap. Someone in their office in either in Canberra or in Alice Springs or Darwin sat there going, "Oh, we better fix digital literacy. So we're going to send every Aboriginal young kid in that community a laptop."
Yeah.
And they did.
Mm.
The community doesn't even have electricity.
Or Wi-Fi.
Or Wi-Fi. Where the hell are they going to be able to use these laptops? So 50 laptops arrived,
Jeez.
and the kids knew how to use them because they could read the instruction booklet. There was just nothing to
Yeah.
plug them into.
Oh, don't. They couldn't charge them up. And
No.
most of all, get Wi-Fi. But that's a good example of where they don't know the communities and what's available on them.
Yeah.
That they'd rather have things fixed up in that community. Yeah, but it's a really, for want of better words, shit show out there at the
Yeah.
moment. And our mob are having to deal with that and still survive somehow
Yeah.
every day.
But I will tell you, the laptops got used. They were holding doors open and holding windows open.
Oh, resourceful.
They were quite resourceful with the laptops, but no one could turn them on.
Geez, and we know they're not cheap. But that's yeah, crazy
Yeah,
example. You could have just done better research and gone, okay, this is where we're going to spend that money and make a difference. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Mm,
So you mentioned you've got kids and grandkids.
yeah.
How big is your family?
Well, I'm very fortunate that my twins, who are 37, they live here. They're both in the resource sector. It's kind of funny in a way. I didn't realize they wanted to be train drivers when they were growing
Oh,
up. They drive those big trains through the Pilbara with the iron ore on the back.
oh wow.
So it's a great career for them, being male and female. And I often talk about my daughter's experience in the mining sector as being very, very different to her twin brother, because our women face a lot more obstacles. They're dealing with sexism, racism, ageism, all of the above
Yeah,
that my son didn't always deal with. So I've got the twins, 5 grandchildren. Um, and I've got two great grandchildren. And those little great granddaughters, they are traditional owners of this country I live on. So I always look at them and think they're very powerful little people
Mm,
because they're Whadjuk, they're Balladong, they're Arrernte-Eastern Arrernte and Kaytetye. That puts them in a good position for life.
yeah. And
Yeah.
that's what I always, when I do my acknowledgement, I want to acknowledge the young people that are coming through because they
Mm.
are going to be our future warriors. They're going to be our future leaders.
Yeah, absolutely. And no matter what happens, it's reminding them to be proud to be Aboriginal. While everyone else might be trashing us, be proud to come from the
Yeah.
oldest living culture in the world. And I'll just share with you quickly one of the highlights of last year, because I do a lot of events and conferences, was the National NAIDOC Forum, which we held here
Yep.
in Perth. And the people who stole the show, AJ, were the young people
Yeah.
because it was the theme was the next generation. And people had never heard of them before. They'd never spoken publicly. And they absolutely blew the room away because their stories were so powerful. And as elders, we all sat there and went, whoa, wow, the future's in good hands.
Yeah, it is. Hey, I've got two questions for you to wrap up because I'm just watching the time.
Yeah.
And the first one is that when you mentioned we talked about allyship before, what makes a really good ally?
Someone who's non judgmental, who comes and stands with us when we say, and I've had them say, well, what could we do, Chris? What could we do to support you? And I say, when we're calling out for you to stand shoulder to shoulder with us, and we might have a gathering in the city, and I think people must think they're violent or something. That's why they don't turn up. Come and stand alongside of us, show solidarity, not behind a keyboard, stand with us when we're calling out. And back then I said, and when we were asking you to vote in the referendum, vote yes. Learn about us, support us. When the Noongar community is inviting you to events, come along. It's a good thing. We want to see you there. And as an Aboriginal business, buy our products, support us. You don't have to be Aboriginal to buy an Aboriginal t-shirt. If it's on sale, support it, buy it, because you're supporting an Aboriginal business out there. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. I know I'm watching the time, so what would you like people to walk away with from our yarn this afternoon?
Ah, that we are proud people, that we have survived. We will continue to go. We are resilient. We get knocked down every single day, every week, and we keep getting up. Don't always make it so we've got to do the heavy lifting. Make it easier. Really listen when we're telling you stuff because you're hearing it from us direct. Have respect for our culture. You know, acknowledgement of country, welcome to country is incredibly important.
Oh, cool.
Never, ever abolish that because it's about respect to us as First Nations people of this country. Remember your visitors here, most of you that may be tuning in. And to my mob, stay strong. We are proud. We support each other and we'll always get there in the end somehow. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. I'll make sure that on the YouTube, everyone can see all your contact details so they can contact you if people want training and workshops and have a bit more of a yarn with you. I'll have that all on my YouTube for you.
Yeah.
Now, guys, I want to say thanks for Chris for joining us. I love the work that you do, and we'll still be in contact. But guys, I want to thank you for joining us on the podcast today. So thanks heaps.
Yeah. Thanks, AJ. That was one of the best podcasts I've ever done. So thank you for all your questions. I
No,
really
no
enjoyed it.
problem. See
All
you
right.
guys.
No worries.
Bye.
Bye.